everyone, I hope you're all well and having a good day. So for today's video I thought I would look at the definitions of chronic illness and disability and at what point I started to identify myself as disabled, alongside also identifying myself as being a person with a chronic illness. So in terms of definitions, a chronic illness is a long-standing illness. So chronic in the dictionary means of an illness persisting for a long time or consistently reoccurring, or of a person having a chronic illness, or of a problem long lasting. So that's the definition of chronic illness. And then the definition for disabled is of a person having a physical or mental condition that limits their movements, senses or activities. So those are the definitions for chronic illness and disabled. So obviously I have chronic illness conditions, so the conditions that I have don't yet have a cure and will be long lasting in terms of I will always have these illnesses. So in that respect I have a chronic illness, or well, several chronic illnesses. When I first got ill I saw it as something temporary. I didn't realise at first that it would be something that would be long term. I just thought, oh, it's just something that I'm going through and I will start to get better soon. And then as time went on it started to become something that was more permanent in my life. And then as I started to receive the diagnostic names for my conditions rather than being undiagnosed, it started to sink in more that I had chronic illnesses, that the illnesses that I was being diagnosed with were long term and would affect me for a long time. So at that point I was just identifying as somebody with chronic illnesses. But as time went on I started to also identify as being disabled, and it wasn't just a one day I decided, oh, I'm going to start using the word disabled to describe myself. It was just something that was a gradual term that I started to use more and more. So for example, I'm a disabled blogger and YouTuber, and I think things like having a disabled blue badge or being on disability benefits, things like that started to make me think about identifying myself as being a person with disabilities alongside a person who has chronic illnesses. When I'm blogging I use both terms, chronic illness and disabilities, because I know that not everyone who has a chronic illness also identifies as disabled, and I know that it works vice versa, where some people identify themselves as being disabled but don't consider themselves to have a chronic illness. So for example, someone with a spinal cord injury will probably, I'm guessing, identify more as disabled rather than having a chronic illness, because having a spinal cord injury isn't a illness. That's just my guess. If I'm wrong, please do put it in the comments. I think it's a interchangeable term, chronic illness and disability, for some people, and that's the case for me. There are times when I use the term chronic illness or chronic illnesses, or that I have chronic health problems, and then there are times when I say I'm disabled. And I think, as well, as important as labels are, so labelling yourself as somebody with chronic illnesses or labelling yourself as disabled is important. It can be helpful. For example, if you're out somewhere and you need assistance and you say, excuse me, I have a disability, I need some assistance and I need access to the disabled changing room, that's a important time to use that term to get the assistance that you need. But I think also it's important not to overuse labels. So I don't overuse the term disabled. I don't use it all the time. There are times when like I mentioned earlier, will sometimes say that I am a disabled blogger and YouTuber, but I don't use the term disabled all the time for myself, because my disabilities and my chronic illnesses are just a very small part of who I am. And my friend Ruth once used this analogy where your life is like a piece of cake and you've got 10 portions, but only one portion is your health. I think that's really healthy to find other ways. So I'm Naomi and I'm really creative. So I think labels are important and are useful, but I think sometimes labels are overused. That's when it can be unhelpful or unhealthy. That's just my opinion. These views are just my own, but I do feel that there's a time and a place for using the terms chronic illness and disabled, and there's a time when it's not necessary to use those labels. Just as it is with maybe other labels that you identify yourself with, like for example, sometimes where I say to people I'm a Quaker just so they acknowledge that I have a religion, but it's not a label that I use all the time, just like I don't use the label disabled all the time. So yeah, I'd love to hear your views on this. Like, do you have a chronic illness? Do you also identify as disabled, or do you prefer to identify yourself as disabled and not have a chronic illness? And what are your thoughts on labelling? It's quite an interesting thing to discuss, and I would love to hear your thoughts and views and opinions on this. So I hope you found this video helpful, and please do join in with the conversation in the comments below. I would really love to hear your own thoughts and your own views on this, because it's such a individual thought process, and I hope that I haven't offended anybody in what I've said, and apologies if I have offended anybody. Please do kind of say in the comments, and I will give you my apologies. Yeah, I'll leave the video there, and I look forward to starting a conversation in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already and want to keep up to date with new videos, and you don't have to, but it would be lovely to have you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I will leave the video there and say bye for now, and hopefully see you in the next video.